A stir. That word is doing a lot of work in this story, and by the time you finish reading it, you will understand exactly why no other word fit better. The Dodgers front office made a decision today that set two separate narratives in motion at the exact same moment, one of arrival, one of departure, and by the time both stories collided in the same afternoon, the only person whose reaction mattered most had not yet said a single word publicly. Ben Rortvedt is officially a Dodger. 3 years. An introductory press conference already scheduled, already prepared, already carrying the polish of an organization that does nothing without intention. And rushing is gone. Not gone to a contender. Not gone to a team rebuilding with purpose and direction. Gone to the worst team in recorded history, a franchise so far outside competitive relevance that the trade itself felt less like a baseball transaction and more like a sentence. His parting words did not go quietly. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, Shohei Ohtani's reaction became the part of this story that nobody saw coming. Let's start with the signing, because that is where the day technically began. 3 years is not a short commitment. In a sport where contracts of this length are handed out with genuine deliberation, where front offices spend weeks running projections and medical evaluations and make-up assessments before committing real years and real money to a player, 3 years signals belief. Real belief. The kind that doesn't get extended casually. The Dodgers GM had been working on this for longer than the public conversation suggested. These things rarely happen as quickly as the official announcement makes them appear. Behind every press conference podium is a paper trail of evaluations, calls, and quiet negotiations that stretch back weeks, sometimes months, before the ink finally dries. Rortvedt was a name connected to the Dodgers in speculation for a while. But speculation and commitment are different animals entirely. The moment the deal became official, the entire texture of the conversation around this roster shifted. The introductory press conference was set quickly. The Dodgers do not waste time when they want a moment to land with maximum impact, and this was clearly a moment they intended to control. The room was full before Rortvedt walked in. That detail matters more than it might seem to on the surface. A full room for an introductory press conference signals something about how the organization, and the city around it, perceives the significance of the move. Not every free agent signing generates that kind of immediate gathering. Some announcements happen with a press release and a brief statement and very little fanfare beyond the transaction itself. This was different. Rortvedt entered with the specific composure of someone who understood exactly what this moment meant, not just professionally, but personally. There was a story underneath the contract. A story that had not yet been told publicly, but one that everyone in that room could sense was coming based on the way he carried himself walking to that podium. The GM spoke first. The standard language. Excited to welcome. Believe in the fit. Confident in what he brings to the clubhouse both on and off the field. The kind of opening remarks that are necessary but rarely the part anyone remembers. Then Rortvedt was given the floor. And what he said next is the part of this day that will be replayed far longer than any statistic from the contract itself. He didn't talk about the money first. He didn't talk about the years, or the opportunity, or the competitive window the Dodgers are operating inside. He talked about why he came back. There is something specific about returning to an organization. Not joining for the first time, where everything is new and untested and built entirely on projection and hope. Returning means you already know what you're walking into. You already know the culture, the expectations, the weight of what it means to put this uniform on in a city where anything less than complete commitment is treated as a deficiency. Rortvedt knew all of that. And he said, in the careful, deliberate way that players speak when they've rehearsed something important in their head many times before finally saying it out loud, that the deciding factor wasn't the years or the dollar figure. It was Shohei. He paused there. The room noticeably leaned in. He continued, choosing his words with visible care. He talked about what it meant to be in a clubhouse with someone operating at the level Ohtani operates at, not just the talent, but the standard. The way Ohtani's presence changes what everyone around him believes is possible for themselves. The way competing next to him forces a recalibration of what effort actually looks like at the highest level of this sport. That part of his answer landed the way honest answers always land. Quietly. Completely. But then he said something that shifted the entire tone of the room. He referenced a moment. A specific moment. Something that had happened during his previous time with this organization, something that had stayed with him in the time since, something that he had apparently thought about enough that it became part of the reason he chose to come back rather than sign elsewhere for potentially more money or a longer commitment. He didn't go into full detail. Players rarely do in these settings. Full detail belongs to private conversations, not press conferences designed for public consumption. But what he offered was enough to make clear that something had happened between him and Ohtani that went beyond the standard professional relationship between two teammates sharing a clubhouse. Something personal. Something that mattered enough to influence a 3-year decision. The reporters in that room immediately wanted more. The follow-up questions came quickly, each one trying to pull additional detail out of an answer that Rortvedt had clearly decided, in advance, to keep at a certain level of specificity and no further. He held that line. Politely. Firmly. The way a person holds a boundary around something they've decided is theirs to keep private, regardless of how much public curiosity surrounds it. But the framing was already out there. Shohei Ohtani had been part of the reason Ben Rortvedt chose to return to Los Angeles. And whatever had happened between them, whatever conversation or moment or gesture had created that connection, was significant enough to outweigh whatever other offers existed on the table. While that press conference was unfolding, a different story was developing on the other side of the transaction. Rushing was gone. Not traded to a team building toward something. Not traded to an organization with a clear plan and a roster trending in a positive direction. Traded to a franchise that has become, by virtually every meaningful statistical measure, the worst team in the recorded history of the sport. That detail alone would have made this a difficult story for Rushing to process. Players who get traded want to land somewhere with purpose, somewhere their talent has a chance to matter inside a larger competitive picture. Landing instead in an organization defined by historic losing carries a specific kind of psychological weight that few outside professional sports fully understand. And Rushing did not process it quietly. His comments upon learning the details of the trade were not measured. They were not the carefully diplomatic statements players are coached to deliver in moments like this, statements designed to protect relationships and preserve options for the future. They were raw. Direct. The kind of words that get repeated, dissected, and amplified specifically because they break from the script everyone expects professional athletes to follow. He spoke about feeling discarded. About the timing of the move, coming the same day as another player's introductory press conference, feeling less like coincidence and more like a message. He questioned the organization's priorities. He questioned whether loyalty meant anything inside a business that operates, ultimately, on production and projection rather than relationship. The word spread quickly. The controversy that followed was immediate and significant, not because anyone doubted Rushing's right to feel what he felt, but because the directness of his comments broke sharply from the carefully controlled messaging that typically surrounds moments like this. Some defended him. Plenty of people inside and outside the sport understand exactly what it feels like to be the name on the wrong side of a transaction, to watch your value reduced to a line item in someone else's roster construction. His frustration, to many, felt earned. Others felt differently. They pointed to the business reality of professional sports, the reality that every player eventually faces the cold mathematics of value and need, and suggested that public criticism of the organization, regardless of how justified it felt in the moment, would not serve him well in whatever chapter came next. Either way, the controversy was real. And it placed his exit in direct contrast with Rortvedt's arrival in a way that made the entire day feel like a study in opposites, one player walking away bitter, one player walking back in specifically because of what he had experienced here. And then there was Ohtani. Through all of it, the signing, the press conference, the controversy surrounding Rushing's departure, Ohtani had not yet said anything publicly. That silence, in a news cycle moving as quickly as this one, became its own kind of story. When he finally did react, the reaction surprised people. Not because of what he said. Because of how he said it, and what it revealed about how closely he had been paying attention to everything unfolding around him that day. He addressed Rortvet's signing first, and the warmth in his response matched everything Rortvet had implied at the podium hours earlier. He spoke about respect for Rortvet as a teammate, about the specific value of having him back in that clubhouse, about looking forward to what they could build together over the next 3 years. But then, unprompted, he addressed Rushing. That is the part that generated the most attention. Because players in Ohtani's position, players operating at the absolute center of an organization's attention and resources, rarely comment directly on roster moves that don't involve them, and almost never comment on the public comments of a player who has just been traded away under difficult circumstances. Ohtani did. He spoke carefully, but he spoke. He acknowledged that trades are part of the business, that he understood the difficulty of what Rushing was processing, and that he hoped wherever Rushing landed, he would find the opportunity to continue building his career on his own terms. It was a measured statement. But it carried weight specifically because it was unexpected. Ohtani choosing to acknowledge a departing teammate's difficult exit, choosing to extend something resembling empathy into a situation that had nothing directly to do with him, told people something about how he views his role inside that clubhouse. Not just as a player. As someone who notices. Who pays attention. Who understands that the human cost of roster decisions doesn't disappear just because the transaction makes competitive sense. By the end of the day, 3 separate stories had folded into one larger narrative about what this organization actually is underneath the wins and the headlines and the championship expectations. An arrival, built on trust and a personal connection significant enough to bring a player back for 3 more years. A departure, raw and unfiltered, that exposed the difficult human reality sitting underneath every transaction this sport produces. And at the center of both, a reaction from the most scrutinized player in baseball that revealed more about his character than any home run or scoreless inning ever could. Rodvet is here because of something Ohtani gave him. Rushing is gone, carrying frustration that Ohtani, in his own quiet way, chose to acknowledge rather than ignore. The Dodgers front office made the moves they believed needed to be made. The press conference happened. The trade was finalized. The controversy generated its headlines and its debate and its predictable division of public opinion. But underneath all of it, the story that will be remembered longest is the smallest one. The one nobody scheduled a press conference for. Ohtani noticed. Ohtani responded. Ohtani made sure that even in a day defined by transactions, something human didn't get lost entirely in the process.